The night. Everything changed. There is a night in every person's life that divides everything into before and after. The question is never whether it comes. It always comes. The question is what you do when it arrives. You remember the night. You know exactly which one. The one that split your life in two. Before that night and after it. The person you were when it started and the person you had no choice but to become by the time it ended. Every life has one. Sometimes it arrives violently. A phone call, a diagnosis, a loss, a moment that removes the floor from beneath everything you thought was solid. Sometimes it arrives quietly. A conversation that finally tells the truth. A realization at 3 a.m. that the life you are living is not the one you were meant for. A decision made in silence that changes everything that follows. The night is not always dark. Sometimes the night that changes everything is the best night of your life. The birth of a child. The moment you finally said yes to something terrifying. The night you stopped pretending and started being honest. But it always divides. Always. Before and after. That is how it works. This video is about what to do with that night. Not just how to survive it, how to use it. Because the Stoics understood something about these turning points that most people miss entirely. And it changes how you see everything that happened to you. And everything that is still possible because of it. The turning point night comes in different forms. Let me name them, because yours might be one of these. The turning point night. Which one was yours? The night of loss. The phone call that changed everything. The diagnosis. The ending of something you thought was permanent. The loss that removed a piece of the world and left a shape you had to learn to live around. The night that proved life could change in a single moment. The night of truth. The night you finally saw yourself clearly. The conversation that told the truth after years of comfortable lies. The 3 a.m. realization that the life you were living was not the one you were meant for. The moment the mirror showed you something you could no longer unsee. The night of decision. The night you finally said enough. The night you chose differently. The night you stopped waiting and started moving. Not dramatic, just decisive. The quiet night where one choice closed one door and opened a hallway full of others. The night of breakdown, that became a breakthrough. The night everything fell apart, and somewhere in the falling, something essential became clear. The worst night that became the most important one. The breakdown that removed what wasn't working so clearly that what remained was undeniable. The obstacle is the way. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius had his night. Not one night, a series of them. The night his most trusted general betrayed him. The night plague swept through his army and he watched thousands of his soldiers die. The night he buried another child. Each of those nights could have broken him. Each one instead produced the next. Entry in the Meditations. Not despite the pain, but because of it. The obstacle became the material. The night became the work. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Epictetus had his night the moment his master broke his leg, deliberately, to test whether Epictetus would react with fear. He did not. He said calmly, "You are going to break it." And when it broke, he said, "Did I not tell you?" That was his turning point. Not the breaking, the response to the breaking. The realization that what happens to the body cannot touch what lives inside the mind. That realization became the foundation of every class he ever taught. Seneca's night was the morning he was exiled, stripped of his career, his status, and his place in the world he had spent decades building. He spent 8 years on a barren island, long enough for most people's dreams to die completely. But something happened in that exile that could not have happened in comfort. He wrote deeply, honestly, without performance or audience. The work he produced in those 8 years became the foundation of his letters to Lucilius, the most intimate philosophy ever written. The exile was his turning point. The night everything changed became the night everything became possible. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. 3 truths about your turning point night, the ones that change how you see it, and what you do next. The night was not the end, it was the edit. Every story has a turning point, not a stopping point, a turning point. The moment the narrative pivots and something new becomes possible that was impossible before. Your turning point night did not end your story. It edited it, removed what wasn't working, clarified what mattered, created the conditions for the next chapter, which could only be written because the previous one ended the way it did. This is not toxic positivity. It is not pretending the night wasn't painful. It was. The Stoics never said pain was not real. They said it was not permanent, and that what you built in response to it was more real and more lasting than the pain itself. Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body.
So, what you become after the night is the point. The night is not the most important thing that happened to you. The most important thing is who you decided to become in response to it. Every person who has ever built something extraordinary has a night in their story. The night is not what made them extraordinary. Their response to the night is what made them extraordinary. Marcus did not become Marcus because of his losses. He became Marcus because of what he chose to do with those losses. Every single morning after, Epictetus did not become Epictetus because his leg was broken. He became Epictetus because of what he decided that broken leg could not take from him. The night is the raw material. You are the craftsman. What you make from it is entirely your choice. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. 3. Your next turning point night is coming. Build for it now. Here's the truth that most people miss about turning point nights. You do not have to wait for one to change. The person you need to become after the next turning point night, you can start becoming that person right now before it arrives. In the ordinary days between the dramatic ones. This is what Marcus's daily journaling was about. Not processing what had already happened, preparing for what was coming, building the mental and spiritual architecture in ordinary moments so that when the extraordinary moment arrived, the loss, the crisis, the night, he already knew how to stand in it. You can do the same. The turning point night is coming for everyone. The question is whether you will be ready when it arrives, or whether it will find you still asleep. Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest. You remember the night, and now, knowing what you know about Marcus, about Epictetus, about Seneca, I want you to look at it differently. Not as the night that broke you, as the night that began making you, not as the night everything ended, as the night everything was forced to become honest, not as the worst thing that happened to you, as the most important thing that happened to you, because of what you chose to do in the days and weeks and years that followed. The Stoics did not escape their turning point nights. They used them, every single one. They turned loss into philosophy, exile into literature, broken legs into schools, plague into perspective. They made the night useful, not by pretending it didn't hurt, but by refusing to let it be the final word. Your night is not the final word either. It is the sentence that ended one chapter and began the next. And the next chapter, the one you are writing right now, in the ordinary days after the extraordinary night, is the one that matters most. The night changed everything. Now you change what comes next.
If this found you, share it with someone whose night you know about. Subscribe for one video a week. Real philosophy for real life. And drop a comment. What was the night that changed everything for you? And what did you build from it? I read everyone. See you in the next one.